Hey guys, welcome to my presentation on extracurricular activities. So what exactly are ECAs? They're developmental activities that are performed outside of regular class time that are typically voluntary and safe, and they allow for students to interact and engage with their peers in a very organized fashion. There are several types of ECAs, including sports programs, leadership programs, art activities, academic clubs, yearbook, music programs, and specialized language programs, among many others. There was a longitudinal study done in Canada that evaluated a parent's influence over their child's extracurricular activity participation. They found that parents generally became categorized in three different ways, either as the enforcer, the facilitator, or as the encourager. As the name suggests, the enforcer required their children to participate in activities that they deemed important. On the other hand, facilitators allowed their children's interests to guide their participation. And finally, the encourager was a mixture of the two, where they had ideas about what would be beneficial. However, they did not push their students or their children toward a particular activity. Now, it's interesting to note that one parent does not solely fit into one category. However, depending on the activity at hand, the student would engage, or the parent would engage in one of these categories. Also, it was found in this study that there's a correlation between what the parents participated in high school to the participation of their children. So if you'd like to take a moment to pause the video, you can look at these correlations. The biggest factor that influenced a child's participation in ECAs was how much a parent actually valued that activity. For example, parents who earned at least a graduate level credential tend to have children who participated in language programs, whereas children of parents who did not earn any baccalaureate credentials leaned more towards music programs and leadership participation. It's also interesting to note that a parent's occupation influenced Cuban families, as you can see in this chart below. Another significant factor of the parental influence on children is that many parents tried to control what students were doing, their whereabouts, and their time, and how it was being used by putting them in ECAs, especially to prevent them from engaging in sexual relationships. These parents were focused on the child's future goals as they realized that unplanned pregnancy and STIs could inhibit their career path. There are several benefits to ECAs. They promote positive youth development, like fewer behavior problems, improved academic self-concept, increased educational achievement. There was also a direct link between participation in school clubs and pro-social activities to higher involvement in political and social causes in young adulthood. Also, it was noted that students who participate in ECAs have fewer diagnoses of STIs during adolescence. In regards to athletics, there are several benefits, including improved school attendance, improved academic outcomes, social relationships, and self-esteem. Also, athletes in the 11th grade were psychologically healthier, and athletes had lower drug and alcohol use than non-athletes. Further, there was a higher school engagement of athletes, and this probably came about because schools require athletes to maintain a certain GPA and to have a certain number of days of attendance in school. Also, students who participated in multiple ECAs had higher grades, motivation, and school completion rates, and they also scored higher on developmental assets profiles. Further, new and lasting friendships are a result of extracurricular activities, especially for those students who participate in art activities. When compared with high school and middle school, high school participation in ECAs developed longer lasting friendships. There was also some cultural significance when looking at participation in ECAs. One of them was a high school that was dominated by Asian and a white population, and it was found that white adolescents were more likely to have part-time jobs, which caused them to participate in fewer ECA activities. There was also an ethnographic study done of the top 4 Hispanic groups in the States, and it was noted that foreign-born Latinos participated more than Native Latinos, and their friends that they were surrounded by also influenced the amount of their participation. There are some things to consider about ECAs, though. Parents have to be careful about overscheduling their children, as it can cause negative consequences academically and psychologically. Also, it's important to note that a student who participates in a sport will less likely participate in another organization and vice versa. Also, teachers are normally the ones who head up ECAs, so you need to be careful that you do not overburden them as they may have a full schedule. Teachers in Canada were found to be more willing to head up ECAs if they had the appropriate preparation time in their teaching blocks. Thank you guys so much for listening to this brief synopsis of extracurricular activities, and I hope that you are encouraging your students to be involved. See you guys.